build on that. To build on our success and show you some of the cool stuff that the SPC community has been working on. So let's go. So quick preview of the day. So we're going to be here for 3 hours, but it's going to be a very fast 3 hours. We're chunking up the day into 3 sections of demos separated with a quick break. And after we get through the intro here, then we'll see Code for Democracy first. At the very end, at 4 o'clock, we will put people in breakout rooms. So please feel free to blow up the chat with enthusiasm and support, but stay on mute, and then you can meet some of each other and talk at the very end, where we'll have those breakout rooms. So you'll have 3 co-hosts today. So you already heard about me. Finn and Mitra are both from the fun team, and they'll be taking about an hour each as well. So you won't have to hear me drone on for the entire time. Thank you so much for offering to help out, and for all the people behind the scenes who are helping make this work. So we're doing live demos today. We're very much leaning in the direction of high risk, high reward. It's very much in the spirit of South Park Commons that we're excited about building, excited about showing off the stuff that we've been working on. Sometimes that can have risks, and Zoom can compound those issues. So big thank you to the presenters, and please bear with us if anything goes wrong. Now we encourage Q&A. Each presentation is going to be 7 minutes long, and we'll have 2 minutes at the end for questions. So feel free to type those into the Zoom chat, and our MC will select a few of them to ask our presenter. If we don't get to your question, then feel free to reach out directly to the presenter if you like. It's nothing personal.
Wait, no, all demos are live? That's wild, man. That's amazing.
Yes, that's right.
Incredible.
We're going to nail 100% of them. Don't worry.
Wow. Hell yeah.
So to talk a little bit more about the community, we have the founder of South Park Commons, Ruchi, here to say a few words.
Thank you, Noah. I don't like looking at my face, so let's just move on to the next slide. I don't like to call myself a founder. I like to call myself the founding member, because SPC was very much born out of a desire to build a learning community for me and my colleagues back then, almost 5 years ago. So what exactly is SPC? It's really hard to describe. We're not a company. We're obviously not an academic institution. We're not one of those accelerators that you see there, and we're not a traditional venture fund. So what are we? One of our members, Zev, who used to be an engineer at Dropbox and decided to follow the spiritual path, so is actually on his way to becoming a monk and studying at a monastery, came up with this definition of who we are and what we are. So I'm going to take a few seconds to read it out aloud. South Park Commons is a community of builders, tinkerers, and domain experts that challenge you, encourage you, help you build and validate your ideas. We believe good ideas very rarely come about in isolation. We are the anti-incubator, a safe zone that promotes judgment-free exploration and development of new ideas. So I want to highlight a few words that definitely resonates with our community. First off, we're a learning community. So we come together to learn, to explore things that we're interested in. We don't believe that you can go off on a trip, travel, go on a hiking trip, climb Mount Everest, and then suddenly Eureka will hit. And you're going to come upon the best idea that you ever have, or the most contrarian idea that you ever have. We actually believe that if you surround yourself with people who are in a similar situation, thinking about similar ideas, you're going to make progress a lot faster. We like to call ourselves the anti-accelerator because we strongly believe that it's important to move slow in the beginning to be able to move fast later on. So an average tenure for an SPC member is 6 to 9 months. They come into SPC not knowing what they want to do. They take some time to explore. So we make the time and the space for them to take a step back. They learn with a group of folks, so they achieve mastery in areas or topics that they're interested in. And then we ask them to leverage everything that SPC has to offer to launch their project, whether it's a company, whether it's a paper, whether it's even like a book off the ground. And now, not all members join SPC to start venture backable ideas. And we really encourage members to define impact for themselves. So not use an external definition or marker for impact. You have to build a company that can get to like $1 billion in revenue that impacts billions of users. But really, what is impact for you and what is going to make you happy? As such, we have our members not only start companies, but they go on to do research, or they'll go back into the workforce, or they'll write a book and decide to do something else. So some might even join academia. So a lot of our members come in and do a lot of different things. Let's just next slide, please, Noah. So we have the numbers updated, but we have 400 members and counting now. I like to say that we are one of the few places outside of the tech giants that has such enormous talent density. Our members have previously been founders, founding engineers, places like Stripe, Dropbox, etc., operators in different companies, open source contributors, and then we reserve about 30% of our community for academics and domain experts. Because when you speak to an entrepreneur, they don't want to hang out with another wannabe entrepreneur. They really want to hang out with that domain expert who beat the Stanford benchmark in some AI algorithm. So our domain experts actually add a lot of value to our community, and our members span 150 different professional networks and academic institutions. Next slide, please, Noah. So on graduation, 2/3 of our members do start companies that have been backed by various venture funds out there. So SPC has produced about 90+ companies. And then next slide. And then other folks go on to join research institutions. One member of us, decided to start a nuclear fusion fund as a hedge against fission. So we have people doing a lot of crazy things, not always the traditional path. Next slide, please, Noah. So if you're interested in membership, or if you have any questions, or you want an introduction to anybody who's demoing today, you can go to our website and you can apply there if you're interested in membership. There's a newsletter that you can sign up for if you want to attend our events or get our newsletters. And again, if you want an introduction, feel free to email me at just ruchi@southparkcommons.com if you can't directly get in touch with the presenters. All right, Noah, back to you.
Thank you, Ruchi. I can speak personally. This is it's been a very unique and super valuable community for me in my journey, going from completely wandering through the wilderness, fun employed, figuring out what I wanted to do, all the way through raising a seed round for a company through the Founder Fellowship. So really appreciate what you've created, what the whole team's created. So for today, so this is just group one. Wanted to give you a preview of some of the demos that are coming in just in a few minutes. I'll let you read through. Hopefully you can get excited and start generating some of those questions. And with that, we can transition to our very first presentation. So Kathy, if you are on the call, feel free to take over presenter duties.
Awesome. I am going to, so I cannot share my screen while the other participant is sharing.
How about now? Sorry about that.
Very cool. Awesome. So I'm Kathy, and I'm working on Code for Democracy, which is a nonprofit that builds tools for political watchdogging. Your average political watchdog is generally a political journalist, a data journalist, a researcher, maybe on the academic or the campaign side, or sort of like a civic hacker who just is really into it as a hobby. And so it's an extremely non-technical group of people who are oftentimes doing things in a very manual and sort of like painful way. And my goal has been to change that. So I'm going to do a demo of kind of one political watchdogging topic. So many of you may remember that let's see, earlier this year, this happened, which is there was a group of Congress people who did not want to certify the election results that had earlier year. And in response, kind of this happened, which is a bunch of corporations basically said, we're going to stop giving contributions to these election objectors and maybe to like all political candidates permanently. And one thing that's really common in the political watchdogging world is to figure out, like, when people make these pledges, is it real? So can we follow up on it to see if it's happened? So I'm going to take a look at this list of corporations and see if they are continuing to give contributions to these candidates. So this is the Code for Democracy tool set. There's kind of like these 4 actions that you can do. You can create a variety of lists, searches, /queries, visualizations, and alerts. So what we're going to do is first, we're going to go create a list. We're going to create a list of some of the corporations that are on this Corporate America list. And just for these, I'm just going to copy in a list of IDs that I have pre-prepared. And so this is a list of kind of the large defense contractors. And we can skip this step. I'm going to save this list as defense contractors. Create this list. And then second, to figure out if these defense contractors are continuing to give to these Congress people, I'm going to create a list of the actual Congress people. And so I have another list of IDs I've prepared as well. And we're just going to call these election objectors. And so next thing I'm going to figure out is like, okay, so are there still campaign contributions from these defense contractors, kind of said they were going to stop, to these election objectors? And so here, this is a query and it kind of intakes 2 lists that we just created. So stay in election objectors. And we'll look at this year. And so let's see. So despite having kind of said they were no longer going to give these political contributions, you can see that kind of starting in April, kind of these contributions from defense contractors have resumed to the Congress people who have objected to the election results. And I'm just going to save this. As a query. And so the cool thing about the Code for Democracy toolkit is essentially you end up with like a dashboard, which means these queries are something you can go back to. Okay, so anytime you want, you can go ahead and just like view the results again. And essentially you can do things like download all the results as a CSV and take a look at them. Very cool. Awesome. Okay, so I think that's basically it on time. So this is a quick demo. I guess I'm open to questions.
It's fantastic. Thank you, Kathy. First question, sorry if I missed it. Who is the target user? Is it the general public or journalists or?
Yeah, so generally we work with political journalists. And then we have a couple of users who are more on like the researchy side as well.
Very cool. What are some interesting stories of users using this to speak truth to power?
Yeah, so primarily people tend to use this to kind of do very similar things to a task that I've just done, which is oftentimes there'll be specific candidates will pledge like, I won't take money from like fossil fuel industries, or I won't take money from, people who don't believe in particular like social stances. And essentially they'll use this to make sure that that's true going into the future and check on it over and over again.
Cool. And I'm sure you have strong opinions on nonprofit versus company. How are you thinking of scaling this up?
Yeah, so when I took a look at this, I explored a lot of whether it could be a venture backable company or whether it should stay a nonprofit. And primarily it's, I think the market size in this space is actually quite small when it comes to actual monetary value, but it is a extremely important segment of society. And so this is basically why I've decided that nonprofit is the way to go.
I love that. It's too important to not build. I'm glad that you're doing it. Omar was wondering if there's any interesting non-financial queries.
Yes, so there are a lot of other queries that you can do in here. So kind of the span of data sets that are generally used in political watchdogging are usually campaign finance stuff, but we also look at things related to like lobbying activity. And so, lobbying activity is like really interesting because it's not necessarily directly financial contributions. It's oftentimes things that are sort of like honorary expenses as well, which is basically you'll like give someone an award, and it's like sort of squishy whether that's like an actual financial contribution or not. There's things we look at where it's like tax documents as well. Look at whether specific nonprofits are getting money from various lobbying entities. And then we also look at like political ads and narratives. So figuring out like who's saying what around particular political action committees or candidates or things like that.
Very cool. One last one from Divya here. So are these direct contributions or are they through SPACs? If it's through a SPAC, could the contributors make an excuse that it was to a party of members, maybe creating a little bit of muddiness in the water?
Yeah, so this is like the interesting thing about political contributions, which is that they're oftentimes passed through like middlemen. And so actually this is like something that we work on quite a bit, which is, let's see, we have this tool where you can basically explore relationships in like a graph format. So like if you're looking at someone like, let's try this congressperson, right? You can see that like each candidate oftentimes has like a lot of different organizations and committees that go and like contribute to them. And then like you think of like there's, this is like a first order contribution. There's a lot of ways you can look like second order contributions. And actually that's, I think, one of the things that is really kind of under probed in the political watchdogging world.
So you can look at those second order contributions. Very cool.
Yep.
Okay. Well, we are at time. Any last calls to action?
Yeah, so our entire code base is open source. So if you want to contribute to this effort, hit me up.
All right. Thank you so much, Kathy. And feel free to show your appreciation via reactions in Zoom. Next up, we have Andy Scheff.
Hey, everybody. My name is Andy. I'm going to start by not sharing my screen for a little bit. There we go. Cool. Yeah, I'm going to start with some audience participation. I'm going to be that guy. I need somebody here. I know that somebody here can tell a story about this. A time when you learned something new on the job. You can keep it pretty brief, but I want an example of a time when you learned something new at work. I will look at the chat, but I prefer an unmute.
Well, I can probably share. It depends on what's new. Like one thing that I learned on the previous job is how the affiliate network basically works. How to set them up and how to work with affiliates, how to track the fraud, sales, et cetera, so things like that.
I love it. And then did you have to like communicate your learnings about this to the rest of the team, or like, do you put this in motion as a project?
That was something that was kind of like handed to me as a project to handle. So I had to dive right in and, spend some time on YouTube and blog posts and things like that to learn. And also to, as I learned this, to share this with the team that I was managing in order to find the the new tools that we can use instead of like what's been used all the time, for example.
Amazing. Thank you. That's a perfect example. Your name is Ev?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, you brave soul. All right. So I'm going to use that example later. I don't know. I just think we're always learning on the job. So I'm going to go ahead and dive in. I'll introduce myself more formally now. My name is Andy Scheff. I'm the founder and CTO of Best Practicer. I started Best Practicer here in South Park Commons with Dave Whittemore back in late 2019 when we were all in person. We met around the table at a new member lunch and then went on a series of walks to formulate some of these ideas that I'll present to you here. So we're building a learning platform that's targeted for the middle of the career, that like awkward, 1 or 2 decades from the time when you first start in a role until you maybe become an executive, where we're really just faking it till we make it and we're learning from our mistakes along the way. We knew that we needed to build something that was flexible enough to kind of fit into everybody's career. We're all like bags of, 50, 100 skills that we learn over time. And we maybe use a dozen of these at any given moment. No 2 product managers or engineers have the same growth edges. So we knew that flexibility was really important. And so this curriculum provides that flexibility. You can see we have hundreds of skills broken across maybe a dozen or so topics in different verticals, different domains. And then we have some horizontal verticals as well that cut across, horizontal verticals, some horizontals as well that cut across the different domains like collaboration and management and strategy and so forth. So we'll show you my best practice review here. I'm a software engineer a couple of years into my career. You can see on the left here, these are some of the skills that I've picked for myself to learn on, working on some of these engineering skills as well as some of these collaboration skills. And then front and center here, I have some reading for myself on estimation, which is a critical skill for software engineering. Let's say I get some feedback from my manager that they want me to start shadowing engineering interviews. I'm pretty excited by this. It's a new opportunity. So I come here and I go and I find that skill. I want to learn about hiring engineers. I want to be ready for those engineering interviews. I want to know what to expect. And then this little piece of validation and this prompt, it's exciting to me. I'm thinking about a promotion. I'm going to read about the senior engineer role as well. And if I click into hiring engineers here, you can see that all of our different skill pages are learning resources in and of themselves. We tried to structure this kind of like a college syllabus here with different learning objectives. And then we use primary sources that we categorize into these objectives, written by folks from top companies that have done the job, director of engineering at Lever, CTO of Stripe, Medium, Amazon, the list goes on and on. You can learn a ton just by reading these articles and applying the learnings to your work. We also curate podcasts, conference talks, and we have multiple modalities of content here. So in this way, I can kind of create this custom course of study for myself. It's 100% unique to my work and my work challenges and my career. But that's not all. This flexibility is great, and the resources are wonderful to consume. But it's difficult to take those learnings and apply them to your field directly. You can learn in theory about blameless postmortems and how to bring them to life, but doing so on your unique team with your unique team members and the size and shape of your company and organization, it's a unique puzzle every time. And this is where the coaching comes in. So our learners have an opportunity to work one-on-one with an expert in their field that will help them with 2 critical things. The first is to craft that custom course of study. Like I picked a couple of skills myself, but my coach can actually help me pick more skills that help push me even further. And then number 2, they're going to help me contextualize the learnings and apply them to my job. And this is where a lot of the learning comes in, actually putting them into practice on the job. So I'm going to go ahead and sign in to the coach view here. I'll sign into my coach account, show you what that looks like. So now I'm a coach that's working with that learner. That learner that's a couple years into their career as a software engineer. Here's my learner's view. And you can see, here's my learner that I work with twice per month, started in July. These are the 3 sessions that we've had so far. These are the skills that we've covered in each of these sessions. And you can see sort of my teacher's view on this custom course that I mentioned. I can also see my learner's skill progress on the curriculum areas that I pointed them towards as well. So now I'm going to go ahead and log a new session. And this is where the live demo really comes into play. So I'm going to use Ev's example here and really test the flexibility of the curriculum. So you said that you were talking about affiliate marketing and affiliate sales. Do we have that? No, we do not. That's okay, because our curriculum is a work in progress. And we can add skills as we go. So I'm going to suggest that this is a skill that gets added. Actually, we weren't sure. I'm actually not an expert in marketing and sales. I actually don't know if affiliate sales is a thing, but you said that word. So I'm going to add both and let the folks with the curriculum, figure out how to handle that situation. And then you also mentioned you had to worry about, communicating that to your team with maybe meetings, and then setting expectations with the folks above you. I think you said that as well. So managing up is a skill there too. Also going to log just these in the form of wins, challenges, and assignments, because we found that this is a great way to motivate the learner to actually put these things into practice. So win could be like, learned a ton about how affiliates work. Challenges, let's see, we don't have internal expertise on the matter. And one of the assignments I'm going to give to my learner is, find someone in your network that you can turn to for more guidance on the affiliate stuff. And of course, as a good coach, I'm going to share some encouragement. You can do it. I'm looking forward to hearing about how the project is going next session. Awesome. And I'm going to go ahead and share those. And in this way, you can see how I've created the next step in this custom course for my learner, encourage them to take on new challenges, and pointed them at some great resources where they can learn on the way. And I want to turn it back now just to wrap this up with a bit, bringing it back to SPC. You can really see in this product that I've demonstrated to you the two threads that represent the explorations of myself and my business partner, Dave, in doing this. When we met, I was exploring mentoring bootcamp grads in the early months of their first real job. I was following a lifelong love of teaching, and Dave was building a dynamic database of the best learning resources on the internet, categorized by topic, and broke it into skills like you see. And we bonded over the following big question that I shared at the top, which is, how do modern workers learn throughout their career in that big chunk of time when we're really learning how to define ourselves? And in Best Practicer today, you can clearly see that these two threads have developed, and even more, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And I will leave it there. Any questions from the group?
Thank you so much, Andy. Love seeing the product. I had only heard of Best Practicer, but looking behind the curtain has been fantastic. I'm curious how you get stats on how well developed you are in each skill. Like, how do you quantify that?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it points towards something that we're actively working on today. Our metric right now for, like, maybe you saw little progress bars by the skills that I was focusing on. We have a pretty crude metric for how developed you are today, which is how much of our content have you read. It's not a great measure. Actually just had an awesome meeting with our lead designer this morning. She's doing a lot of user research on exactly this, which is measuring skill progress. And we're looking at building kind of granular, very small performance reviews per skill. And so you as a learner can trigger a self-rating for, say, code review. Say, this is how I feel about this now. You can check a box to say, I want my manager to give me their rating as to where I am on this today. And then we'll take that feedback and then prompt you again in 3 months, building into the interface a reminder to you and the coach to work on this skill along the way. And so one of the main problems that we're focused on right now is, how do we quantify outcomes? As you can imagine, when we're talking to companies about bringing Best Practicer to their organizations, their first question is, how do you know it works? And right now we have a lot of really great positive, qualitative feedback from our learners and our coaches, but we want to get quantitative. And I think that's like a huge, next step for us that we're actively building now.
Fantastic. Last question. Any concern sharing source code from one company with the coach? Could be some proprietary stuff in there.
Oh yeah, of course. We sign NDAs, and like our coaching relationships are covered under NDA. And so in general, like, the learners and the coaches feel really free to share, sensitive information in both directions, obviously within reason. But yeah, it's definitely a concern. We address it with legal agreements that allows us to be pretty aggressive. Of course, there are learners who would, rather not share a particular thing. And in those cases, they can still get a lot of value out of working with their coach just by talking at a high level about the challenges that they're facing, and giving them the gist without going into the details. So, I mean, absolutely. But we work confidentially, and that's worked for us so far.
Fantastic. That's all that we have time for today, but feel free to follow up with Andy directly. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Next up, we have Hongzi, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Please correct me.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Great.
Hey, everyone. Very happy to share with you our project, rolling.ai. What we are trying to do with rolling.ai is to create new ways for streamers and content creators to interact with their audience in real time. The reason we want to do this is that right now, the primary way, or pretty much the only way for streamers to interact with their audience is through text, chats and comments, which is single dimensional and not long lasting. When you watch those popular streams, you oftentimes see those comments flying through without like a long lasting effect. We have been talking to a few streamers that have expressed their interest to have some different ways to interact with their audience. For example, allowing their audience to edit, enhance, or add effects to their streams directly. So with that said, I'm gonna share my screen. Right, everyone can see my screen?
We can see you.
Yes, so this is a Google Chrome browser and has my web camera on. So what we have built is a set of AI tools that runs directly in the browser that allows streamers to easily come up with their own customized ways to interact with their audience. Now, due to time limit, I'm only going to be able to show one tool that's based on a face mesh tool. So this face mesh is a 500 key points that track accurately on my face. It's running directly in the browser, so no server involved. And it's running on my 13-inch MacBook Pro on Intel chip. And it has a 3D depth sensing just based on a single camera. And this is achieved through a combination of WebAssembly and WebGL that allows us to execute a compressed deep neural network in real time. Now, with this model, what we can do now is to allow the audience to doodle arbitrary on my face. I don't know. For example, I'm gonna just draw something cute, right? On the cheek, and then maybe I'm gonna just draw like a head decoration, a 3-spike crown from basket, and I'm gonna apply it. It will show on my face, and it's tracking pretty accurate. I can move around, and it will stay on my face. Now, in fact, I'm actually streaming directly from this browser right now using WebRTC. So what I can do is to intercept the Zoom camera with this stream. So now hopefully not only you can see this effect on my shared screen, you should be able to also see the effect on my Zoom camera. I can temporarily stop the stream so it's more obvious. You can see on my face, right? The effect is shown. There's a few seconds of delay because I'm streaming right now. I can share back the stream so it's more real time. 1 second. Yeah, so this is everything is run in the front end on the edge without any server involved. So this tool is what I'm showing you right now is only a face mesh tool. But this, I'm gonna turn off the effect. It's weird. But this WebAssembly plus edge-based ML is really like a powerful set of tools that really unlocks a whole box of possibilities. We can do other things, for example, like room decoration or adding some AR VR effect, also just directly on the browser. And besides video track, we can also do like audio tracks, to do things like transcription or translation in real time for the streamers to interact with their international audience. So this is pretty much it for the demo for now. I'm working on this project with Tom Pao, who is also a current SPC member. There's actually a help I want to ask from the audience today. We have been talking to a few streamers and content creators now, but honestly, the size is not large enough to represent a wide variety of the streaming community. So if you have connections to streamers, content creators, and honestly anyone with videos in their workflow, we'll be very happy to chat with them, understand and discover their need, and show this demo and other stuff just to see what kind of creativity can we unlock from them. So thank you very much. Feel free to drop us an email or send us a message in the Zoom session. Happy to take any more questions.
Very cool. Incredible technology. My first question is this more enabled by software or hardware advancements?
So it's a combination, right? Mainly it's so there's two sides. One is on the engineering side, just to execute the model fast enough. That's only available like quite recently, this WebAssembly, and really the SIMD optimization for the assembly level optimization for WebAssembly. And on the other hand, there's also like deep learning advancement, right? Just to run this face tracking in 1080p 60 frames per second at my laptop pretty comfortably. That's also like a pretty recent technology. And then also compress that deep neural network into something small. Yeah, I really think it's like two combination. And for the hardware, we are not using special hardware for now. But you can imagine executing like this, like lightweight model on like very simple hardware like Raspberry Pi. That's also kind of possible right now. Yeah.
Hongzi, is everything being done on the edge? Kind of like, oh, that's super cool actually.
Yes, right. The demo I show, it's just directly run on the Chrome browser. There's no server involved.
Nothing like writing some assembly code. Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Another question for you from Jacob. Are there any other domains besides, let's say, Twitch streaming where you think that this could be interesting?
Yeah. We have been talking to like companies, marketing departments that generates videos. Sometimes there are this like collaborative workflow, right, to generate like one video with multiple people involved, like video producer, editors, right? To have them like work together in a lightweight fashion, like in the web or not using like a special application. That's like powerful. Yeah, we're not only we're navigating ourselves in that domain as well, just exploring.
Very cool. And last question, actually more of a clarification. Are you looking for intros more to companies like Snap and Twitch, or more to individual influencers, streamers?
Yeah, I think that's a question that we are trying to explore right now, to be honest. That's why we want to talk to as many people as possible, just to see which opportunity is the largest. Yeah, but we like Tong and I are like leaning towards more on the 2C path. That's just like our own interest. We are more excited about this path. Yeah.
Very cool. Super impressive. Thanks for showing us. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Next up, we have Chase.
Thank you. So I'm here to talk about Blank, a community NFT project that I'm working on with a few friends, including some South Park Commons members. So as I'm sure you've heard, there's all sorts of new use cases emerging for NFTs, art, collectibles, virtual goods, profile pictures, you name it. And we think we've stumbled upon the killer new use case for NFTs. Blank NFTs, as in totally blank JPEGs. And you probably think I'm joking. It's kind of a joke. You might think this is a postmodernist response to the craze of the NFT bubble and or boom, depending on your orientation. It's also that, but there is a catch. The blank NFTs can be upgraded by a vote of blank NFT holders. So when you purchase a blank NFT, you actually have no idea what it'll turn into. Maybe it turns into a cat, maybe it turns into a song, maybe it turns into a community-owned game or book. No one knows. It's up to the community, and that's kind of what makes this a fun little experiment. So this is all a bit recursive. So let's dive into the demo of exactly how it works. So I'll share my screen. All right, so you guys can see my screen. So here we have the Blank server. So if you're interested in the Blank Foundation, you're interested in this idea, you can click apply. You then land on the applications channel in the Blank server. because obviously there's no value in a blank JPEG, this is really about buying into a community and an idea. So there's an application process where we ask people to say a little bit about what they've created in the past, what they would change about the world, if they could change anything, and how they want to contribute to the community. And if you get nominations from 5 current members, you are admitted into the community, and you're given a founder role, you're given access to private Discord channels, and you're invited to purchase up to a maximum of 10 blank NFTs for 0.05 ETH each. And the reason we cap the number of NFTs is to try to do a fair launch where ownership and decision-making is decentralized from day one, and no whale can come in and buy a controlling share of the NFTs. One important thing to note is that 100% of the revenue from blank NFTs, every penny raised, goes to a treasury that is controlled by a vote of blank NFT holders. So when you buy these NFTs, that gives you a vote over how to use the treasury funds. And 10% of all of the treasury revenue is earmarked to go into an endowment that the community will control. So we'll invest that ETH forever. And then any returns, we'll vote on what charities to donate that to. So in theory, the charitable component of the community could last forever. So then after joining the community, you can meander over to proposals channel where people are getting started thinking about what these blank NFTs could turn into. There's an idea for them to turn into pterodactyls that earn new attributes over time. There's an idea for them to create your own adventure novel. There's another idea that they could entitle you to airdrops from musicians that want people to listen to their new music. There's all sorts of ideas. But on October 1st, we are going to hold a vote in our snapshot, which we're just setting up now, where here you'll see all the proposals for what the blank NFTs can turn into. And if you have blank NFTs in your wallet, you'll be able to vote for the top one. And then the NFT contract is upgradable. And then our multi-sig will actually execute the new code to upgrade everyone's blank NFTs. So wrapping up, again, this is an experimental community art project. No one knows what the NFTs will become. That's what makes this fun. But if it goes well, we should have this amazing community of Web3 creators that are all united by NFTs that we all collectively helped to create. So this could be kind of the seed of like a 100% community-owned incubator for Web3, where we all work together to kind of just build cool stuff that we're interested in. And we all share in some of the ownership through this collective ownership of NFTs. So right now, when people are flipping NFTs of cats and apes for millions of dollars, most people are probably turned off by the idea of buying a blank JPEG. But if you are one of the few people that is excited by a blank canvas, we hope you will join us. Just head over to blank.foundation. SPC members would all be amazing. You've got my nomination if you apply, and I hope to see you there. Thank you very much.
This was very mind-bending. The number of memes going in the chat as well. It's striking a positive nerve for sure. I'm curious if you have any bets on which direction the evolution will go, or is it total chaos?
Something that came up, it's kind of a very yes and culture so far, which is cool. And it generally like leads to cooler ideas. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like, if they evolve like every month based on whatever is the current top voted thing, and it becomes like this way of airdropping new NFT concepts. So it would almost be like whatever's at the top of a subreddit is what shows up on people's NFTs. So it's almost like an NFT version of like the $1 million homepage. So I don't know. That's one idea, but I think the point is that I don't know. So that's kind of what makes this exciting.
Super interesting. One question, I assume this is yes. Are you comfortable with the site being shared with peers and friends who might be interested?
Yeah, like this is a side thing and we're just like opening up membership today. But anyone that would love to join, like that would be awesome. And we'd love to get you involved. And it's very much like everyone in the community is a creator and we're creating the community together, including the NFTs that unite us. So yes, please share it with any and all people.
Super interesting. On the governance side, can you vote for more votes? Curious how you're thinking about the governance and how things are going to be evolving over time.
Culturally, it seems like at least the early members, we have this like democratic leaning of we're really interested in exploring one person, one vote, but that's very difficult because there's not good decentralized identity solutions. And we don't want to have to do like Sybil resistant, like KYC type stuff. And so the way we're getting around that is we're just doing one vote per NFT, which is obviously a little bit more of a plutocracy than a democracy. But by capping how many NFTs new members can buy, we are at least throttling the number of NFTs that any whale could acquire. Like if someone wants to spend all day inventing new applications, like, okay, you could buy more than 10 NFTs, but like the likelihood that someone's going to come in and buy a controlling share seems quite low. So it's kind of our middle ground between democracy and plutocracy.
Cool. One question, is this the metaverse? Is this going to become the metaverse? What's the interaction there?
Like I don't know. That's kind of what's fun about it. But one idea for the NFTs was like, if you meet someone else that has a blank NFT in real life and you show proof of it, you both get like an airdropped another NFT from Treasury. So it was almost like the opposite of the metaverse. It was like facilitating in-person interactions versus online. But again, I have no idea. Maybe we make metaverse avatars and this ends up seeding it. I think that's kind of the excitement here.
I love it. Some people try to over-engineer your kind of embracing the chaos of the network. I hope it goes well.
The ultimate MVP.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Next up, we have Simon Gu.
Hey, guys. Let me start with my screen shared. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Perfect. So it's actually pretty fun going after Chase. I think recently NFT's blown up, and so has a lot of like investing really. For us at Archimedes, we're trying to solve the problem of how to make investing a little bit more accessible to everybody. And what we're working on isn't necessarily just like another tool or brokerage that lets everybody trade today, but really giving people the confidence and knowledge to make investing a big part of their lives. And so for us, like I'm working on this with Tyler, and he's normally on here. He has a story that talks a little bit about our product approach. So I'm going to do my best to give that story. But essentially, Tyler bought a house, tree came down. He needed a chainsaw, and he bought one at the store. And like reading the instruction manuals was like terrifying. And he tried Googling it and YouTubing it. Nonetheless, none of the approaches he did made him feel safe about using that tool. So what he ended up doing was actually calling his dad to come over to show him. And so for us, at Archimedes, we feel like investing is very personal to everybody, and we should have that same experience that you have someone knowledgeable and someone friendly to be able to come help you learn. So this is how we've actually started out our app interface, which we start out as an investment coach asking you, what do you want to do? So we're aligning all our learning into outcome specific. And so you see 4 today, but you can imagine this covers all aspects of investing. So let's actually put our shoes in the first time investor. Let's just say we haven't gotten started. One thing we're doing is we're personalizing the learning experience. We're asking questions at every single step just to make sure we know where you're coming from and where you want to go. We want to make sure that from the first interaction, we're absolutely aligned with your self-interest, because ultimately we need you to trust us. So in this case, let's just say I give the answer. The next screen you see is like, so if you think about a coach, we have fitness coaches that will give us a workout plan if we want to run a marathon or lose 10 pounds. But there doesn't really exist a financial coaching, which is like, here is actually a plan that you need to take to invest for the first time. Obviously, you need to know a little bit about the lingo, understand what's in the news. You need the tools to do so, open a brokerage account. You need to start somewhere simple, pick an ETF, and ultimately you need to buy something to invest. So let's actually jump into a brokerage account example. Again, we're asking another question to continue to cement that relationship building. You can imagine as we know more about you, we can tailor more specific content towards your goals. This next screen, this is like where we give that like trusty actionable advice, because I honestly feel like, so my career in finance, I've been self-taught. I feel like the Google approach is kind of terrible. You might end up at an outdated Investopedia link, and then you might learn something, and on the off chance that you understand it and it's actionable to you, most people have questions, now what? And the only options at that point is to maybe go to a community online to get your questions answered. In this case, we're just providing trusty content really to get you started. So if we need that brokerage account, here it is. So essentially we have bite-sized lessons, but what we're doing is we're empowering the learning experience to be very immersive. So we're breaking down content like glossary and stuff within context, so you don't have to stop and like go Google something and then come back where you picked up. At the same time, we have little quizzes that's kind of fun and it allows you to really engage your progress. And lastly, we actually have video content, and we truly believe that learning is more than just reading, but it's also a big visual aspect. At this point, once we go through this, we're hoping that people do feel confident at this point, knowing the ins and outs of what it takes to take this first actionable step. So in this case, it's the brokerage account. And I'm going to jump back and let's just say we've actually learned everything. I'm going to mark this goal complete. So you can also imagine during this process too, at this point, you're like, okay, I know enough. I know what I need to do to open an account and what tax docs to expect and what leverage means. It's like, where do I turn? So we actually have a few options here in terms of referring the best services out there. This is all community driven in terms of like, is Robinhood the best for you? What happened to Robinhood, or should you go to something more traditional like TD Ameritrade? At the end of the day, everything in terms of this learning experience is to drive people to be able to take confident action. And at the same time, it's like, as I mentioned, we're like building that profile and knowing your progress. We can suggest to you advanced content. So in this case, you see there's a new I want to statement that popped up after completing the first one. Imagine if we open our Robinhood account, Robinhood's trying to push us to do options. This could be us suggesting, hey, so there's great, Robinhood lets you do options, but before you dive in, this is what options are. This is what happens when you buy options. This is what you have at risk. So essentially, we get to head off a lot of these problems. And ultimately, this whole on-ramp experience you're seeing here is just us building trust with our users. And ultimately, what we want to do is we want to make financial knowledge and even advice accessible to everybody. So what you see here, this is actually our expert tab. This is where all the financial experts in our communities, our network comes online. So much like Andy's solving the at work problem, we're solving the at life problem around finance. So in this case, Nat, he's our crypto expert. I know very little about NFTs. I would maybe buy an NFT, but nonetheless, he's here to be able to teach me. He's running a quick AMA on our platform, essentially what we like to learn. As a user, I can ask the question, what's an NFT? And he can, oops, if I can spell it correctly. And he can, after I asked it, you see that it's come up as number 2. He can come back and answer it. And in this context, he's already answered a question above, what's the best centralized exchange? He does it in video format. We allow that personalized response. And we also allow all our experts to leverage the same content on our platform so that he doesn't really have to water down what he says to us to make everything actionable. Our goal is that depending on whoever you are coming onto our communities, whether you've been investing for 2 days or 2 years, you get the same actionable insight from all our experts without needing to stop and fill in the context. And I'm going to show you one last piece of content that our experts can engage, which is Nat actually doing a mapping through crypto, August 2021. In this case, he talks about Axie Infinity and a few other things, but what essentially he has done is he has created a video, uploaded on our communities. What we're providing him is fully annotated breakdown of all his key points. This actually brings entire permanence to his content. So what I mean by that is we were trying to get people to create evergreen content. When was the last time we went onto Twitter and asked the question, hope somebody answered us? Versus can we create the Stack Overflow in terms of approach where we know that here are the best possible ways this question has been answered. So this is the start of that permanence we're building. In addition to that, as a user, we really be able to uncover knowledge within video. So right now, currently video is like a book without table of contents. It's really hard to scrub through in advance or revisit, because there's been, or even just audio. Like when was the last time we heard a great podcast and try to revisit certain points? It's a pain in the ass scrubbing through. So we're trying to make everything actionable and discoverable by our experts to the point where he can continue to build trust with us and we can continue to get our questions answered by experts. And as we build that relationship, we build that trust. And eventually, it's only a matter of time that we would actually go to Nat and be like, hey, I actually want some help. Can I hire you to help with my personal circumstances? And this is just a start because we're talking about Nat today. What if it was Mike on as well? We're engaging. Mike's fantastic with taxes. Now, it's at this point, Mike and Nat can collaborate together to solve my unique consumer need, which is this summer, I bought a bunch of NFTs, I sold them, and it's the end of the year, and I think I have a tax bill. What do I do? Well, in this case, Nat and Mike can actually help transact on our platform and help us solve that question and be able, so then the whole financial services industry becomes more broken down to something more personalized to us versus here's a white glove service that's 1% of AUM that doesn't really fit all your needs. That's our demo. I'm happy to answer any questions.
The app looks great. Thanks so much for showing us. I'm curious on the spectrum of TD Ameritrade level conservative to craziness that happens on Reddit, like where do you pick the point on that spectrum for your voice?
Yeah, it's a good question. So like Reddit, Wall Street Bets, like a while ago was actually pretty decent for due diligence. It wasn't until like all the consumers got on and everyone had to post, can post and will post, was the quality diminished. And at the same time, TD Ameritrade they're so conservative, they don't really answer your questions. So for us, like the reason we're approaching it from essentially an ecosystem point of view, it's like we think that the best conversations are fostered by experts, not just generally anyone who's 18 years old and has a brokerage account can tell you what to do. So in that case, like we do want to harbor the community aspect of learning, but we want to make it so that the majority of that learning is actually shepherded by experts, and these experts need to be like carefully vetted. You know, they have to. You know, crypto is relatively new, so it's not like there's a degree or anything to prove you. But if you're well known within the ecosystem or certain communities, and you want to share knowledge and you want to create a business sharing your knowledge, we should allow you to do that.
Very cool. I'm sure the crypto nerds are thinking of distributed identity, distributed reputation right now. Any follow-ups, feel free to reach out to Simon directly, and we are at the top of the hour. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you.
Let's turn it over to our next MC to lead our top of the hour break. You made it through the first hour, everyone. Thank you for your undivided attention. You can take a second to stretch your legs. Let's see.
I can take it from here, Noah. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to all of our presenters and question askers and volunteers in the first hour for giving us such a strong start. Let's recharge our batteries for a few minutes before we have another round of fantastic presentations. So if you'd care to join me, please close your eyes, and we're just going to do a few minutes of stretching and relaxation and reflection before we start again. So if you'd like to participate with me, with your eyes closed, first raise your shoulders up, hold for a few seconds, and then let them sink down. Let's repeat a few times, just loosening up our shoulders, up and down. And a third time, shoulders up, pause, down. Now, still with your eyes closed, tilt your head to the right, stretch the left side of your neck, not in a place of discomfort, but in a place of challenge. Back to the center whenever you're ready. And do the same, leaning to the left side, stretching the right side of your neck. And then here, if you can do it with your flexibility, roll your head slowly down towards the center of your torso and back up to the other side. And let's do this a few more times. As you do this, I encourage you to think about a time in your life, likely in your childhood, when you felt like you were most in the zone of learning. To Andy Scheff's question earlier, when was the time when you just felt so ready to absorb and explore and learn more? And maybe this was in a classroom with an excellent teacher. Maybe it was in a city at a museum. Maybe it was in a countryside, exploring nature. But just think about that place and try to channel some of that energy. And we'll think about that for a few seconds in silence as you continue doing whatever feels good. Maybe it's ankle and wrist rotations. Maybe it's continuing to stretch your neck and shoulders. But I'll just give you a minute to think about that place. And as you slowly open your eyes and come back to the meeting, let's see how much of those feelings we can recreate in our adult lives of Zoom and WhatsApp and text message and email. And maybe we're not going to solve that on one of the demos today, but at least it's something we can channel for the next 2 hours and continue giving our speakers our attention and our curiosity as we listen and ask more questions. So with that, if you haven't yet, open your eyes, come back to the screen, and we're going to start with the second hour. So I thought it was interesting that we have 3 one-hour slots here, because in screenwriting, the 3 phases of narrative fiction are typically 1, setup, 2, confrontation, and 3, resolution. And though I do not hope that we have any confrontations in this next hour, I think it's a great spirit to bring here, which is of coming with an open mind to hear about these ideas, asking interesting, challenging questions, and seeing what we can learn from each other and continuing the dialogue afterwards. So thank you all for sticking with us and meeting the next 6 presenters who all are in the seeds. We are now moving to our next presenter, who is Michael Gummelt. I wanted to share a funny story about Michael. He and I first met at South Park Commons in 2019, and he had the vision for what would become Plato, which he'll share today. And he and I took many walks around the oval of South Park Commons as he described it to me. And at the beginning, it was very conceptual, and I struggled to understand what exactly he was building, but through his patient explanation and some prototypes, eventually we were able to get to a place where I only needed 1 lap around the oval to rock what he was building rather than the previous 3 or 4 that I needed. And I'm sure today with the demo, it'll be immediately apparent to everyone. So Michael, I will turn it over to you to share more.
All right, thank you, Mitra. Can you hear me all right? Are you there?
Yep, we're coming through loud and clear.
Okay, great. Hi, everybody. My name is Michael. I'm the founder of Plato. Plato is a live low-code platform for creating internal tools. Companies have a few options today for creating internal tools. They can build them from scratch, which is pretty expensive. They can build them using Retool, but that's really just built for engineers. And they can use something like Airtable, which any user can use. It's usable by non-engineers. But Airtable doesn't integrate with existing systems like databases and APIs. So Plato is a low-code environment meant to democratize computing that any user can use to build tools that actually integrate with their company's existing systems. So today I'm excited to show you a prototype of Plato. And in this demo, I am an operator at a grocery delivery company, like a DoorDash or an Instacart. And my job is to help grocers publish their catalogs to our platform. But before I can do that, I have to first get sign off from several stakeholders like grocery store managers and my own boss. And right now I'm doing that all manually. I'm just emailing everybody and keeping track of who has and hasn't gotten back to me using a spreadsheet. But me and my team, we manage hundreds of grocers. So this is taking us about 80 person hours a week, which is costing the company about $200,000 a year. And so I'm going to show how we can use Plato to automate this process. Here I have a simple catalog management app built in Plato, and I would like to extend this with a new button on the canvas that's going to fully automate this approvals workflow. The first thing I need to do is add a couple of data fields to my grocer. So I'm going to right-click on my grocer and go to my grocer's data table. This is a view on my company's Postgres database, and I can use this view to add new fields that are just going to stay in Plato and not actually touch the backend database. This is actually the killer feature for my first customer who frequently needs to do ad hoc data modeling against their production data. So I'll add a field called stakeholders, which is the list of stakeholders I need to contact, including the primary contact, the internal owner, and also the regional supervisor. Create that field. Then I'll create one other field called approvals, which is the list of stakeholders that have provided their approvals so far. And right now, this is just the empty list because we haven't received any approvals yet. All right, that's all the data I need. So now I can go back to my grocer and I'm going to add a new button to this canvas called Approve Publish. Whenever I click this, I would like for emails to automatically be sent to every stakeholder I just defined, asking them to approve the catalog. So to define this automation, I'm going to go over here to the bottom right and click the red record icon. Whenever I click record, I start recording what's called a macro. If you're familiar with Excel macros, they work in the exact same way. where every action I take in the UI is going to be recorded and then automatically replayed whenever anyone clicks the button. Macros are the most innovative and valuable feature in Plato. They are what allow non-technical users to define new logic, which is usually the area where most low-code systems are very weak. And this is Plato's strong suit. So I'm going to, so as I record the macro, you'll see a list of actions that I'm taking show up in the top right as a sort of trail of breadcrumbs. And I'm going to start off by opening up my grocer, going to the list of stakeholders, and I want to send an email to each of these guys. So I'm going to right click and start a new loop. Now every action I take will be repeated for every stakeholder in this list. So I'm going to open up my email widget and create an email to the stakeholder's email address. I'll give it a subject, and the body is going to have some rich HTML. So I'll open up my components, drop in some templatized text, and a new button called Approve Catalog. This will be the button that the stakeholder finally clicks when they get the email. And I'm going to define what that does in a second. But first, let me just send off this email. And that's the entire email workflow. So now I can finish up my macro. And now everything I just did has been recorded and will be automatically replayed whenever anyone clicks the approved publish button. Now, if I like, I can edit the macro I just created, go to the send email step, and define what the approved catalog button does. Whenever a stakeholder clicks this, we want to add their name to a list of approvals. And once that list is complete, finally publish the catalog to our platform. So to define this, I'm going to record a new macro. I'll open up my grocer, go to the list of approvals. Right now, it's just the empty list. So I'm going to drag the current user over to this list and then start a new branch. Every action I take after starting a branch will be executed only if the branch condition is true, which in this case is a simple Excel style formula, which is true when the list of approvals contains the list of stakeholders. Or in other words, if every stakeholder has provided their approval. This is as close as you ever get to coding when using Plato. So I'll start this branch, go to my grocer, and publish the catalog. All right, that's the whole workflow, so I can finish that up. And the last thing I need to do is just drop in a message to this field. This will be the message that the stakeholder sees when they finally click the approval button. All right, I'm all done, so I can go home, and I'm going to remove that old publish button and just replace it with the new one we just created. And now I can test. I can click publish. I see that the emails were sent. I'm actually one of the stakeholders myself, so I can go to my email. Sure enough, I got it. Hey, Michael, we're about to publish the catalog, but we need your permission first. Please review it here. Okay, looks good. And then once you're satisfied, click the button below. So I'll click the button that we defined earlier, and I'm brought back to the application, and I get this message. Thanks, Michael. The catalog will be published once the other stakeholders, Logan and Louisa, sign off as well. So once they sign off, the catalog will be automatically published to the backend, and this manual email and spreadsheet workflow I was doing before is now fully automated with Plato. And this is really the whole idea behind Plato, is that you can take an existing application and just like a spreadsheet, extend it in real time to solve new problems, mostly by doing three things: manipulating data tables, creating drag and drop views, and recording macros. So thanks for listening. And I am hiring. If anybody out there is an engineer or knows an engineer who is interested in democratizing computing, I'd love to talk to you.
That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing, Michael. I had a question to start, and then we'll transition to some from the chat, which is, in the course of your presentation, you mentioned Airtable, you mentioned Excel, you obviously are even playing with email communications. Who do you see as the products you're primarily hoping to replace? And I know one day in the future, it will be all of the above, and we'll be frying our eggs in macro. But in terms of short term, what are the big suspects that you're going to dislodge?
Yeah, I think early on, we're probably going to be mostly compared to Retool, because when people think internal tools right now, they're often thinking of Retool. But the biggest difference there is obviously that Retool is very engineering focused. Their marketing is almost exclusively toward engineers. Using it requires a lot of SQL and a lot of JavaScript. In the long term, I think Plato is actually a lot more similar as a product to Airtable or even to Notion. And actually, those are the companies that I look at more in the long term.
Nice. A great question from Jacob Scott. Is Plato a walled garden, or is there a way to export a Plato workflow?
I would ask him to elaborate on what he means by export, but it's certainly not a walled garden. So here we're connected to an external database, a Postgres database. We're also going to be adding a graphical API client like Postman for connecting to APIs. It's actually probably the biggest differentiator, other than the macro feature, between Plato and Airtable, because Airtable is very much a walled garden and it's really just useful for building standalone tools.
Nice, got it. Thank you for sharing. And as Michael said, he is actively hiring. So if you are compelled and inspired by his demo, please reach out to him directly to learn more about what sorts of things he has coming next. So with that, we're going to switch to our third team, who is Momentum. And I know we have Santi here on the call. I wanted to share a kind of inside scoop fact about Santi that many SPC members, and I'm sure our guests don't know. So in the context of South Park Commons, Santi is building a product in the sales space, and he also, as a founder, is very actively selling his product. So he lends his wisdom frequently in the SPC Slack channels to other technical founders who are pursuing sales and trying to make their very first sale and pitch customers. Many people don't know Santi is a very talented engineer who has over a decade of experience as an engineer, engineering manager, and CTO. And because he wears so many hats, I think, and does sales so well that a lot of people assume he has a career in sales. And I am here to burst his bubble and tell everyone that actually no, he is also an engineer under the hood. So very excited to have him wear both of those hats at the same time to share Momentum with us all. So Santi, I'll let you take it away.
Hi, Mitra. Thank you. And thank you for the intro. Yeah, I've never really sold anything in my life, and that's probably going to undermine some of the advice I'm sharing in the South Park Commons chat. But I've certainly been, learning and trying the craft. And because we are building a tool for sales teams, it's important that we learn the craft and we improve it. So by now, I feel like with a year, I have seen, observed, and learned enough to share at least more than opinions. But back to Momentum. We started Momentum as soon as I joined South Park Commons. Moise is here present as well. Our CTO, my co-founder, and Ashley isn't on the call right now. But the problem that we identified when we started Momentum was the issue that as we're moving to SaaS and cloud, the motions to procure and buy software are becoming a lot more complex. You start to having to think about integrations, security, deployment, how things are going to run in production, whether my team will even want to onboard and use products. And what that's doing is making the motions of selling a lot more complex. Closing bigger deals these days requires a barrage of stakeholders on the seller side. You have account executives that are managing basically a full sales team. You have sales engineers, customer success, product, finance, legal. And like everybody who is selling something knows, the longer it takes to close a deal, the more chances you have it'll fall through. So with Momentum, what we're trying to do is help you streamline a lot of those internal motions so that the deal closes faster and more effectively. And your account executive can really focus on the customer and not really on herding all the cats inside your company. Basically, and thanks to Michael going right before me, I'm going to pick up on some of the learnings from his talk. Momentum is a low-code platform as well. It's a sales-first tool that is giving modern sales teams the building blocks to operationalize their workflows. But let's go to demo. I talk way too much. Let me share my screen. So I'm going to give you a bit of an overview of the life of a salesperson in enterprise sales. You start in Salesforce and you're looking at a lead. A lead is usually somebody who seems to be having some intent to buy your product. In this case, it's Elon Musk, which is exciting. I just talked to Elon and he's excited to try Momentum at Tesla. So as an SDR, the first thing you usually do is go into Momentum and mark this lead as converted. I'm converting him from somebody with intent into a potential real opportunity. So in this case, I'm going to create a brand new account. I'm going to create Elon as a contact, and then I'm going to create a brand new opportunity that is Tesla Enterprise license 4.5. We'll call it that. Whenever I create all these objects in Salesforce, they're basically data points for me to be able to track my notes and work through my deal. The good thing about Salesforce is a great system of record. The challenge with it is a terrible tool for collaboration. So teams are falling back into tools like Slack or email to try to collaborate around these data sets on their own, and then hoping that the Salesforce opportunity is kept up to date and data hygiene is okay. Now, what Momentum is trying to do is give you the building blocks to interconnect all these tools so that the rep has a better experience. We can improve the data hygiene by collecting a lot of these highlights into Salesforce again, but more importantly, just streamline the process so you can actually sell. So let's switch to Slack. What happened in Slack is Momentum sent me a message. It identified that I had moved the lead into an opportunity. And because of my company, no opportunity should ever be created without real notes on why they're qualified. We have built a workflow on Momentum that sends me a quick message and says, hey, you just converted into an opportunity. Give me the reasons for that being an opportunity. So if I come here, I have my notes, something that looks kind of resembling of my SDR notes. When I hit submit, the workflow basically pushes this into Salesforce, captures the data and clears the message, which is nice and sweet, but let's move on. In Slack, Momentum is showing me a lot of the same information that we had in Salesforce in a way more accessible fashion. So now I can see the opportunity we just created for Tesla Enterprise, and I'm going to actually update this deal and make it a $10,000 deal. This is something that, in the old world would require me to go into Salesforce, log in for the third or fourth time in my day, which takes about 7 clicks. And I probably would drop the effort and never keep it up to date. But in the case of Momentum, you just do it straight from Slack, very straightforward. But it's a lot more interesting when I start what we call a deal room. That is one of the recipes that we currently deliver out of the box. By clicking Start a Deal Room, Momentum is basically orchestrating Slack and Salesforce. It's creating a dedicated channel for Tesla with the right naming convention, and it is inviting the right people into it. At this point, we have 5 people in this channel participating. We have a lot of the details directly from Salesforce, so nobody needs to go log into Salesforce and check out what this deal is about. And this is important because many deal rooms that we look into for our customers have 35, 40 people. Many of them are engineers and will absolutely refuse to ever log into Salesforce, but many of them are salespeople themselves that prefer to just have a lower friction method to interact with things. So here, Phil is already participating in the process, which is great. And I'm realizing I actually need an SE, a sales engineer, for this deal because it's serious. So we created a workflow to do that. We call it Deal Assist. So for this deal, I am able to look at all the workflows that we have built directly into Momentum for my company. I'm going to search for a sales engineer. Went ahead, request. I'm going to suggest a person, Kareem, and the workflow begins. I am the approver. So the first step of the workflow is that somebody needs to approve this request. I'm going to do it myself so you can see some of the power of Momentum. This person looks good. When the workflow completes, Momentum not only cleans things up, but it also invites the person into the channel, writes the name into the opportunity. We never had to go into Salesforce, and now we have a collaborative environment where much of this conversation is happening. A couple of other things we're doing in the channel is things like capturing files. If I drop a file into this channel, things like MSAs, MNDAs, it's very common that they get thrown around in Slack and nobody can find them later. Momentum is automatically picking them up and dropping them into the Salesforce opportunity because this channel is directly connected to the opportunity. Some of the interactions we've been developing is the idea of using emojis as a good mechanism to give signals to Momentum and receive signals back. It's pretty low friction, it's low noise. In this case, you can see that Momentum told me that the file was saved by giving me a floppy disk emoji reaction, which is neat and novel and low friction. But other cool things can be done. In this case, Kareem joined into the meeting with Elon Musk and captured his notes in Salesforce. And Momentum came in and really quickly relayed those notes into the channel for everybody to stay up to date. Phil has an important comment here. He says, hey, I think it's very important that we remember that this deal requires a Zoom integration for us. This is the kind of message that kind of gets lost in the weeds of collaboration. And a year from now, we pay for it. So with Momentum, we give reps a very low friction mechanism to highlight that and mark it as an important data point. By reacting to it with the right emoji, I tell Momentum this is a highlight. Momentum gives me a nice check green checkbox mark about it being complete, and everybody's happy about it and it's recorded for the record. One last thing I want to show, which is kind of a good use case of chat for managing deals. I'm going to capture a couple of notes saying that the next step for this deal is to schedule a pricing review. I'm actually going to change this deal to $50,000. I'm going to say that we're going to close the deal next Friday. When I push this into the channel, Momentum can pick up the changes I suggested and automatically go into Salesforce and change the opportunity, which is really cool. Of course, we can look at that directly from here, or we can go straight into Salesforce. And one last thing I'm going to do as my last trick here is to close the deal. Whenever we win a deal, there's many actions that usually tend to happen in a company, right? You want to build that customer, you want to let the CSM or the post-sales team that handles it to pick it up. And many of these things get done by hand, which is painful. You don't want to be onboarding 150 sales reps to learn how to use Asana or post things in Slack. So what we're doing in this case is when the deal closes, we have built a recipe on Momentum, not only to suggest that we archive the channel, but also to create an activation ticket in Asana for us and post all the details about the deal close directly into Slack. At this point, I feel pretty good about it. I can either convert this channel into an account channel for my CSM team to pick it up, but I'm just going to archive it, clean it up, and everything's gone. The deal got closed, everybody collaborated, and I didn't really have to jump that many tools to get to do it. So that's the full demo of Momentum. All of these recipes that I showed are fully custom built for the customer. We have a bit of a book of recipes that you can pick things from and kind of explore the things we've already built and we think are relevant. But then once you copy one of these recipes, you basically customize it to your own needs, interconnect the tools you already use, and you get to have a pretty streamlined sales motion without a lot of effort.
Santi, that was awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. We have a very active chat discussion, a couple of M&A folks in the audience suggesting what companies should snap Momentum up first, but I know you have big plans to make this a large, independent, long-lasting company. Unfortunately, we are a bit over time, so I'm going to defer questions, perhaps to email. You can reach out to Santi directly. But again, thank you for a very inspiring and time-saving, really, presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. And next up, we have Alex Zirbel. As I was thinking about this format for Demo Faire, I thought Alex Zirbel kind of has the ideal profile because he has given at SPC 2 lightning talks, 5 minutes long each, that were just a riot. He taught us how to make boba, and he also taught us how to memorize his personal bank account number. So Alex, you seem to be wired to kind of maximize entertainment in short periods of time. No pressure for your playbook presentation, but on that note, I'm going to let you take it from here and share what you're building.
Thanks, Mitra. Yeah, no pressure, huh? Okay, but guess I'll start. So yeah, I'm Alex. I'm a co-founder of playbook.com. Playbook is like Dropbox for design. So whether you're a freelancer or an individual designer or a small team or even a very large team, you're going to need a place to put all your stuff that goes into design processes. So things like illustrations, icons, photo shoots, fonts, like just all the raw materials. And so Playbook is a better way to do that. Share my screen. Right. So I said Playbook is like Dropbox for design. You might ask, isn't Dropbox for design? Good question. Glad you asked. This is South Park Commons Dropbox for their brand assets. Actually, this is very well organized. So thank you for Finn making this available to me, but also not to critique it. Things are actually very, very well organized. There's logos here, illustrations, website stuff, and so on. But you can imagine if this got a lot bigger, if the team had many people throwing stuff into this and the structure started getting a little bit crazy, it would be impossible to find anything. And typically what you end up doing is you'll start clicking in like, oh, I need the logo, I'll find a logo, RGB, this is what I want. No, actually I need the PNG version of it, and so on. And so we're working on a tool that will help with all things related to this. So what I wanted to show was first setting up an organization, and we're basically just going to link in that exact same Dropbox folder. And Playbook is pretty happy to just sit right on top of Dropbox or Google Drive if you wanted to. You don't actually have to import everything. I'm going to go ahead and skip over. This takes about 2 minutes to import everything from Dropbox. And so you could just keep it here and use Playbook normally, but for this demo, I wanted to show what it looks like if you import everything to Playbook and start organizing. So let's do that. So I'm adding everything as a Playbook board. And so here we can see already there are logos, there's some fonts in here, there's some photos in here. Try to reorganize some of this stuff in more of a Playbook way and show you some of the benefits of that. So logos, like we saw, have these different folders for PDFs and PNG, and this is the same stuff, but in different formats. So what we can do here is organize and flatten these. And this will basically just take the folders and crunch them all down into a single level. And so here's a version of the logos where you can just see the logos. Once you've found the logo, it's available in PNG, EPS, and PDF, just like it was. And we can click in and grab the version we want. And we even have some little, nice polish on the top, like maybe I don't need this as a PNG. Maybe I just need it. Oh, that my thing is in the way. Okay, maybe I need it as like a JPEG at half scale. So there's a few little features, and we'll get more and more of those as we go. But I think just seeing everything very visually it makes actually a pretty big difference when you're trying to find something you need. So I'm just going to pull that out, just organizing some more stuff. Illustrations. This looks pretty good already. I noticed when I was clicking through that there's these folders that I think for the website have these photos. I don't know what these photos are, so apologies, they're probably outdated, but I was wondering, are these the same photos in these various folders? And what if we just put all the photos in one spot? So I'm going to do the same kind of flattened thing I did before. And then filter to JPEGs and PNGs, grab all of these, and make a new board just for photos. And then I noticed there's some fonts, and I'll just do the same for that. And so what I'm hoping to show here is just give a sense that when things are organized more in this way, this should feel more like the creative home base, like, oh, this is my stuff here, it looks good, and I can very easily browse and skim and find it. So far, though, I've mostly just been covering storage. So I wanted to touch a little bit on why we tie into kind of creative process as well. So for that, we could check out the fonts. And you could imagine that you want to store this stuff here, like you need to keep the fonts nearby, but maybe some of these fonts are outdated or others of them we don't have licenses for or whatnot. In other systems, you might have to either delete these or permission them out so nobody can see them. In Playbook, I can just select these and unapprove them. So I'm an admin. When I unapprove them, they're kind of grayed out. And if I open them up, it's shown that this is for reference. Since I'm an admin, I can still download it. But if I was a member of the organization, I would just be able to see this and organize it, but not be able to actually use it. The other kind of workflow thing I wanted to show would be a little bit around kind of like sharing and presenting. So for South Park Commons, one thing we might want at some point is a public press kit. So I'm going to grab a few of these logos that look particularly good, make a press kit board, and then I'm going to share this to the web with a link. Let's call this press kit and check it out. And so just like that, we have a public link. Anybody can go to this URL, grab any of these logos in any of the formats, download the whole thing or individuals. And if we wanted to do something like this, but more of a portfolio, we can just change the theme to one of our other themes. So this is the same thing, but a version where you can view things, but can't actually download them. So portfolios, sending work to clients, kind of collaborating back and forth. These are all just kind of tools that we're trying to make available. We got about halfway through organizing what's in the Dropbox. I went ahead and skipped ahead 2 and just made a South Park Commons organization that's got everything in here. So style guide, logos, photos, and so on. So I assume I'll make this available to the rest of the team at some point. And so I just wanted to leave it there and talk a little bit about, what can you do with this? For example, there's a few features we have, like you can search for Twitter and more quickly finds like, okay, this is the Twitter social media image. It comes from this board where there's all the other social media stuff. Cool, that was fast. Do we have any photos of people smiling? Not specifically, but these were all auto-tagged as smiling people. So, okay, cool. We get some of kind of like the off-the-shelf ML stuff. And where we're going with this, in the past few years, you can see that the kind of content creation tools have had this huge bump. So stuff like Figma, frame.io, Facet are like awesome new ways to edit stuff. But what all those tools still need at the end of the day is some kind of unified home base where all of the media goes, kind of like the backbone. And so that's what we're trying to build. And so this is just the start. Of course, we're just getting started. But if you imagine kind of like the smart search features from Google Photos, from Pinterest, from all those other consumer apps, but brought into kind of your creative workflow, that is what we're trying to do. So thanks for following along. If you want to see more, we have a public page here with some of our artists that we're showcasing, and drop me a line. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Oh, Jeff, I'm going to mute you. Thanks. Thanks so much, Alex, for sharing. And I appreciate that you use the SPC logo in so much of your demo to kind of further promote SPC. That was nice of you. Let's sneak in one small question before we move on to Jeff, and you can read some of the compliments afterwards, Alex. I wanted to share Ren's question. You mentioned Frame a little bit. On the video side, do you feel like you're competing with something like Frame?
Maybe a little bit, in that Frame has their own kind of like repository for video stuff. But not really, because I think that even if you're using Frame, you're going to have not only the people collaborating directly in Frame, but also the wider body of people across the organization. And you're going to need something to put all the rest of your stuff. I think this is a better comparison to Figma. Like in Figma, you might have people like editing like the working version of something together. But then at the end, you're still going to want to put it in the like, this is the result place. The other thing I could say is that we would love for Playbook to integrate with tools like that. So if you're building a tool like Frame from scratch and it's like the brand new best video editor ever, you should not have to build the whole storage, search, and like keeping track of stuff side. You should build the editor, you should integrate with Playbook, and we will take care of all of that for you.
Right, makes sense. And Alex also teased earlier a third company, Facet, which we'll be hearing from in the final hour. So make sure you stick around for that. Thank you again, Alex. And let's move over now to Jeff Calvin from Hardline. I actually was able to use the Hardline product this morning to confirm that they were on for today's demo. So I can speak from experience when I say it's a delightful product to use and to hold. So Jeff, I'll turn it over to you and your team to share more.
Great. Thanks so much. Really happy to be able to present to everybody this afternoon. As Mitra said, I'm Jeff, and I'm joined today virtually by Zach and Chris, who are going to help co-present our demo here today. We've got a couple thousand miles of distance in between us, so it's kind of a perfect way to show off Hardline in action. We're excited to share what we've been building. Hardline is a fast, simple communication tool that's built for the tens of millions of trade workers who don't sit behind a desk. Our customers are under incredible pressure to move quickly and not make mistakes when they're out in the field. And they work in jobs where missing information can be the difference between getting the job done on time or behind schedule, and over budget. When you work with your hands, tracking down answers can be a costly delay. So Hardline connects exactly the team you need to knock down roadblocks and get you back to work. We're going to do a quick demo today of just how quickly you can get talking on Hardline. So to start, we'll download the Hardline app and enter my phone number. And then receive a one-time passcode to log into the app. And now I'll join a channel with Zach and Chris, and we're ready to talk. How's it going in San Francisco, Zach?
Going great. The fog has burned off, and it's a beautiful day.
I should mention that for the purposes of this demo today, even though you can see Zach and Chris on video, their audio through that Zoom session has been muted. So all of the audio that you're hearing from Chris and Zach is coming through Hardline. How are things on the East Coast, Chris?
Out here in Boston, we had a gorgeous weather today. It was sunny, mid-80s, a little bit breezy. And I've just got the tail end of rush hour going by outside.
You can talk with groups of unlimited size anywhere in the world with Hardline. The audio is streamed live like an instant phone call. The app works with just your smartphone, but stopping to focus on a touch screen can be pretty challenging when you work with your hands. So if you're familiar with wearing gloves and standing at the top of a ladder and holding a piece of conduit over your head, you know that screen-based applications are not super convenient when you're in that type of situation. So we built Hardline's radio to solve some of those challenges. It works in tandem with the Hardline app. It's very compact, simple, easy to use. It's smaller and thinner than your phone, and it's loud and clear for noisy job sites where you've got a lot of background noise to contend with. And it's also designed to always be within reach. So you can attach it to your vest or clip it onto the back of your phone with a ruggedized case that we're using in partnership with OtterBox. To show you how this works, we're going to quickly pair to the device. So I'll navigate to connect Hardline Radio. And with one tap, I can connect to the device. And now we're ready to talk with the Hardline unit attached and connected. So now I can talk with any team or our Hardline voice assistant with just the push of a button, even with heavy work gloves on. Zach's going to talk a little bit more about how this all works.
Hi everyone. If you know something about RF, you might expect that the Hardline radio works like a Bluetooth speaker or headphones over legacy Bluetooth protocols, but that's wrong. We use Bluetooth Low Energy, or BLE, more typically associated with beacons, smart locks, and IoT. Streaming bidirectional audio in real time over BLE is extremely difficult and differentiated. It gives us unmatched flexibility, control over the user experience, and innovation potential. And it future-proofs our IP for years to come.
Thanks, Zach. We spent a lot of time really honing in on the acoustic experience of this device because there are many legacy products that folks use for communication in environments that are challenging that frankly don't sound great. Very, very difficult to communicate back and forth with a team. And so that's been an area of deep focus for us as we've developed the Hardline radio. And Chris is going to share a little bit more about the acoustic qualities of the radio.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, like he was saying, one of the major challenges we faced was trying to find a way to provide an audio experience that is both loud enough for construction sites while also being small enough to fit into your pocket. We've been able to get our device to output 100 decibels without sacrificing audio quality, which is, and that audio level, that's comparable to an ATV or a motorcycle. It totally blows a smartphone speaker out of the water.
And with that, we're going to wrap up our quick demo today. But before we jump to any questions, I just wanted to take a quick moment to thank SPC for both hosting and the incredible support that you've offered to Hardline over the years. If you're watching this afternoon and you're thinking about joining SPC, do it. I can't endorse it enough. It's one of the very best communities of some of the smartest folks that you'll ever, smartest and just really incredibly good, generous folks that you'll ever have a chance to be around. My co-founder and I, Seth, met at South Park Commons and launched Hardline about 3 months later. So I hope that if you're thinking about it, you spend more time around the community, and you never know, maybe you'll start a company with one of the members.
My heart is very full from that, Jeff. Thank you. Let me ask one question with my echo. I apologize. And we can let you guys get back to building both their product as well as on the field. Moyes asked a question, which is, can you tell us more about the battery consumption on the phone from the product you've built? Oh, Jeff, I think we're going to need you to unmute.
Thank you. Battery life has been a huge focus for us, both on the device side and on the phone itself. We're using BLE, which is very low power consumption compared to classic Bluetooth, and the app sits dormant in the background. So the impact on the actual phone battery is very negligible. The app can be sitting in the background of your device for days. And when someone talks, it'll pick up a connection to our server, immediately stream the audio over, but when it's not needed, it's sitting in the background using no system resources.
That's fantastic. So if someone can mute Jeff for me. this is how good the audio is that the feedback is so strong even over Zoom. Thank you very much, Hardline team. We appreciate it. And we can't wait to have access as non-construction workers. There's some chatter in the Zoom chat about potentially some recreational use cases when people are out skiing with friends. So we'll get on your pilot user list and see if we can follow up there. Last but not least, in our confrontation middle third section with our seed companies is Madhulika, who joined SPC with a passion for the field of climate change and mitigating some of the challenges that the governments and economies alike are facing. And she actually led SPC's Climate Forum as part of sharing this knowledge and passion with the rest of SPC before joining her latest company. So Madhulika, I will wrap it up with you as our final presenter of this hour.
Thanks, Mitra. I'm thrilled to be back. It's so good to see so many people, and I have to agree with everyone in the chat. These demos, I'm loving them. They're so awesome. So thanks for having me. And let me see if I can get my screen share going here. Great. So I'm going to talk to you about Station A today, where we're building a clean energy marketplace and a one-stop shop for all your clean energy needs. And when you start off at stationa.com, if you're a commercial building owner, because we're beginning in the commercial solar market space in the United States, but we hope to expand to all clean energy markets. You start your journey here with a buyer's guide, but pretty quickly you end up in our app. And I'm basically going to show you both the marketplace as well as some of the tools that we have in the app. So when you're in our app, you basically arrive with the dashboard, which tells you what projects are running in the clean energy marketplace. But first, I'm going to show you a few features quickly in the SaaS product. So you can go into explore mode, and we've basically mapped and gotten a bunch of information, utility data, roof area, all sorts of things that help you make decisions around solar for millions of buildings in the United States. And the ones that we've mostly looked at and calculated things for are ones that have greater than 10,000 square feet in their roof area. So that makes them basically in the commercial space. And so you can put in an address of interest, and I'm just going to fly us to an apartment building in Cambridge where I used to live many years ago. And you can click on the building and you get a bunch of information about it. Sorry, I'm actually going to iconize myself so I can see my whole screen share here. And you can click on different tabs down here. It shows you what we think is the likely total cost of electricity at this location, sort of the matching tariffs. There's information about the location, as I said, maybe the owner, the roof area, square foot, and so on. And then one thing you can do is you can add this building to a list that you might have going of interesting properties. And you can introspect this list in the analyze mode. So in analyze mode, you can go to you can basically make lists using lots of different criteria. And so one way is to make it using a geographical region. So this is a list of 60 locations in a part of Cambridge. And you can kind of surface the properties of these locations in a table format. So you can see kind of what we've computed for solar savings based on your roof area, based on other aspects of the building, such as the cost of energy and what we estimate your energy use is. You can edit the properties that are surfaced in the table, turn on maybe locality and roof area, cost per kilowatt hour total that we estimate, and owner. And then, this table expands out, and you can both look at kind of the numbers, as well as, one of these is the Museum of Science and other buildings owned by MIT. And then if you're a building owner, most commercial building owners own a number of properties. So if you want to look at all your properties together, you can upload all your properties in a list. So actually, let me just show you that super quickly. You go to create new list, and you have the option basically to upload buildings from a file using a CSV or an Excel spreadsheet. And once that's done, you can come and take a look at them on the map. And then, this particular portfolio has a bunch of buildings on the East Coast. And then you can zoom in and look at some of the data that I just showed you on any of these buildings. So once you've looked at all your buildings, and you've decided, okay, this one's the best one for solar savings, and maybe there's some incentives in that state that make it pretty cheap to buy solar panels because the government's going to give me some money for it. You decide, okay, I'm going to run my project through the marketplace. So, you come in and you set up an organization profile. And here I've actually set it up as a provider, as a solar panel provider who would bid on the project and, put in a little bit of information about myself, what clean energy products I offer. And then we've only just launched the marketplace recently this year. So we've run one project through, which was a carport in Bakersfield, California. And we currently have a project for 2 buildings in Alameda. And so we can go to this project, and here we basically help you as a buyer to onboard your information. We tell you what information the solar providers are going to need in order to make a reasonable proposal. And this information is surfaced obviously both in terms of the timeline for bidding as well as the disclosures for the project, and a little summary card here that talks about what the buyer is looking for, what kind of financing. Shady Haven was an all-cash deal, and this is a PPA, which is a pretty common form of solar panel financing. And so then once the RFP is up, the request for proposals is up, a bunch of providers can come and they can bid on the project, similar to how you might bid on a construction project, because really commercial solar is at the level of a construction project, and it's this huge headache for a lot of buyers. And the current process is such that if you go through it, you're like, I'm never doing this again. So our goal is to make this as transparent as possible, have all the questions answered in the beginning so that when the project actually occurs, there's 0 or few change orders. So we decide what these questions are. We have a lot of in-house experience as to what kinds of questions the buyer needs answered in order to make a good decision. So there's an overview in terms of the project manager and licenses and insurance and so on. There's the main part of the design for the proposed system size and the energy production and the inverter and warranties. And then there's a whole section for financing, which changes based on what kind of financing the buyer is interested in. And then a final section on timeline. So once the proposals are in and the proposal period closes, then Station A assembles the quotes from all of these different proposals and designs, presents it to the buyer, and this way it's a little bit more transparent of a process for the buyer to choose what proposal works best for them. So I will stop there and maybe take some questions.
That was stellar. Thank you for sharing. One question I had, Madhulika, is what is your role at Station A as you thought about all of the different companies you could go to? And Tamina shared your background in the chat, that you are a computational biologist by training. I'm sure you had a number of different paths you could pursue. How did you pick this company? And specifically, can you tell us more about your role?
Yeah, so I'm a software engineer at Station A. And as Tamina said, in my past lives, I've done both computer science and biology. I'm super grateful to other members at South Park Commons, Tamina and Andy Scheff, who's here also, for helping me. Helping me get ready to re-enter the workforce, because I haven't looked in the chats. I don't know if Tamina mentioned, I also took a number of years off to be with my 3 children at home. And so when I was returning to work, I really actually really liked what Kathy Jen said in the beginning, which is to try to build something you're not going to regret building. And so I looked in lots of different places. I looked in some biotech companies, recycling, plastics, climate change. And I was very interested in clean energy. So that's kind of how I began. And I was interested in, it seemed that software engineering was a skill that was going to be useful. So I applied to a bunch of places. I really love my coworkers at this company, which is, I came in very early. There were just the 3 founders and 1 other employee when I joined. And I, like what a lot of people have talked about here, really appreciate the opportunity to direct so much of the direction of the company.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that background and context for us. And thank you to all of our 6 presenters for the last hour of seed stage company presentations. At this point, I am thrilled to share the microphone with my colleague Finn, who will take us through the final hour of presenters.
All right, thanks Mitra, and another great set of presentations there from the seed stage companies. And just 1 more hour left, but before we jump into things, we're a little bit behind schedule, but I think we have time for a quick break. If anyone needs to run to the bathroom or grab some water, they can now, and we'll resume in about 3 minutes. For those of us that are staying here, have a fun little exercise to get everyone's blood flowing. Let's stand up and do 5 jumping jacks real quick. Is no one going to join me? Andy, I see you. I see. There you go. All right. Ready, set, go. All right. Now let's sit down and do some arm circles forward, starting with big circles. Getting a little bit smaller here. Those are some good arm circles there, Tamina. And now pausing and reversing, starting small backwards arm circles into some bigger ones. Oh, all right. And now if everyone can reach up and take themselves off mute, and if you have the ability to turn on video, do so, and just give a little drum roll with me here. Sure. I think we are ready to move on to our next demo, which is going to be Mohak at Atlas. I think when I first met Mohak back in 2019, he self-described himself as a power user of visas. So it makes sense that he is building a tool that massively simplifies that process, and he's going to give us a sneak peek at it here.
Oops. Thanks, Finn. Hey, everyone. My name is Mohak. I'm the founder of Atlas. Without much ado, I'm just going to go through the whole demo. It might appear to be bizarre on how stupid some requirements are, but that's why Atlas exists, to simplify traveling. So yeah, and then I'll answer all the questions in the end. So if I am an immigrant in the US and I want to travel to Germany, I'm going to walk you through what a nightmare it is with and without Atlas. So it's a B2C app where any traveler can access it. You can download it right now. The first step is just scanning your documents. Well, don't steal my passport information, but that's like the interesting thing, where like 90% of everything that you do across like your travels, the information remains the same. So Atlas just becomes like a single source of truth, where you just do it once and then it will be reused and sent to whatever entities, governments, airlines require it. The next step is you simply put your travel date in. Yep, and then it's automatically going to calibrate based on your profile if it can save you time. There are a bunch of ancillary requirements that the app will get for you. For example, right, it sounds stupid, but you need literally a travel insurance to get a visa because they think that you're going to their country for free healthcare, which may be true, but still. It's a lot of ever-changing requirements, but like to the traveler, it shouldn't matter. So we try to abstract away all the nuances. Yep, scheduling appointments, like for a lot of visas, you have to go and visit like a consulate. It's a pain in the ass to like find appointments, to go through antiquated systems. but on Atlas, you can just schedule it in real time and you can see all the open slots. Similarly, they literally, a lot of countries require a letter from your manager letting you go on leave for a 6-day holiday, and it's really hard. So a lot of these small things take a lot of time, but when you use Atlas, you could literally just send a DocuSign to your manager, and it automates the various workflows that you have as much as possible. Similarly, a lot of you might have taken these photos. You don't have to figure out worry about the dimensions. The app automatically figures out the dimensions, fixes the backgrounds, and then just sends it to a Walgreens near you. Again, crazy requirement, but you need to show that that you can afford your holiday. So this is you can you can connect your bank statements and everything. The other thing is, what was very annoying, especially for travelers my age and younger, we didn't even know what notary meant. So when I was applying for a visa and they asked me to notarize it, it took me some time to just figure out what it is. But luckily on Atlas, you can just do it from your couch over video. You don't have to go anywhere. So trying to automate the process as much as possible. So it took us, it takes on Atlas on average of 7 minutes to complete a visa application. This previously took about 15 hours and a lot of physical and digital interactions. And once you pay, everything is generated instantly. There's no human in the loop. And so I'm just gonna rush past this. And so it's gonna generate all the paperwork, book all the appointments, whatever payments is required. It's all gonna be handled automatically. And yep, so we can see the final result. The final result is this 50-60 page application that it's all done. You don't have to go to any other website. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to call anyone. You don't have to figure anything out by yourself. You don't have to do any research. Just everything was just done, is done for you. So if any of you are traveling internationally, please use Atlas.
Thank you, Mohak. This was great. Is it okay if we chime in with a question or two?
Yeah.
I think Harold had a question. Is Atlas available for applicants outside of the US? And I maybe had a question that kind of tacked onto that, which is, what kind of visas does Atlas currently support, or what countries? And are you guys seeing any trends in terms of, what countries are kind of most popular with your app?
Yes, first question, not yet. We're not available outside the US, but we will be expanding soon. What kind of visas? Mostly tourist visas, but a lot of people from San Francisco in particular have started to move to Portugal for an extended period of time. So we started supporting digital nomad visas. In terms of trends, great question. Every country post-COVID has its own complex set of requirements and health authorization and health visas because of COVID that you need to apply, and it's really complicated. And so that's been on the rise for us. Even to go to Mexico or any of the Caribbean nations, you now need to do a lot of paperwork that you didn't previously. And so that's definitely a trend we're noticing.
Got it. Do you guys support some of these new, more kind of healthcare related questions in the visa applications?
Yes. So all health forms, authorizations, visas, digital nomad visas, travel visas.
Amazing. Well, I think a bunch of us are going to go and give this a try right after the demo fair, so that we can plan, our travel for the upcoming year. But thank you so much, Mohak. If there are more questions, feel free to email Mohak directly. I'm sure you can drop his email in the chat, and I'm sure many of us will go and give this a try. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Amazing. Up next, we have Max from Material.security. Material is being used by companies like Gusto, DoorDash, Roblox, and Lyft to help them prevent sensitive information from being shared over email. And now Max is going to give us an inside look at how they managed to do that.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, happy to be here. I'm a security architect and customer-facing engineer over at Material. Just gonna go ahead and jump right in. This is the only slide I'll show, I promise. But just for context, our demo starts with an attacker and a mailbox. Right? So we're a cloud email security tool, and a lot has changed with cloud email and email in general over the years. And security products really have remained the same. Most are proxies or gateways that are blocking, on the way in and dealing with threats as they come into the environment. So the really neat things there are that we work with both organizational email as well as high-risk VIPs, right? It's the same APIs underlying all of this functionality. So the first couple of things that we solve for are, if an attacker hits the mailbox, the first couple of things they might do are download the contents of the mailbox or simply start searching for things like executive comp, right? Sensitive information. What we're able to do here is via API, actually rewrite certain messages after a certain time frame to protect these from bad actors or internal threat models, but provide end users with a very easy way to get back to the original content, right? So this one was just locked because it had payroll info, sensitive content, and using a simple push notification or any other challenge mechanism, I can, as an end user, easily retrieve said message, right? So I'm popped right back in the inbox. Secondarily, what we'll do is pretty similar here. We'll intercept, any and all control plane emails. So things like, box password resets, right? If you're a Game of Thrones fan, that's how HBO lost a whole season of Game of Thrones. It was a simple password reset email. So I'll steal a trick from last year's demos, and while we're waiting for that password reset, here's some John Travolta for everyone. So once that password reset hits the inbox, what we'll realize, right, is it is again rewritten. This time only the second it hits the inbox, right? So similar flow there. All I need to do as an end user to go through that flow is accept a push notification, and I'm on my way. This is super useful for folks extending investments in SSO and other tools to protect other assets that may not be federated or for other reasons aren't protected the same way. The last thing I'll show here in terms of protecting end users is what we do regarding phishing attacks. So again, going back to the blocker analogy, phishing training itself is an acknowledgement that emails like this get through, right? They'll send you a high reputation domain, encrypted zip, etc. What we do is we give end users a very easy way to report this. And then what our system will do is go ahead and ingest that report. It will go find any and all similar messages, right? So I'm now in a different mailbox. Maybe this user is a little bit less savvy, and our system will automatically give them a warning. And we can do lots of other neat stuff like speed bump links and attachments, block them outright, and provide education to end users. So that's all we do from an end user standpoint. There's lots I didn't show today, but I'm happy to follow up and do extended demos, talk about the product, open positions, or just connect in general. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Max, for presenting. Super interesting. And people in the audience, feel free to drop any questions that you might have in chat, and we'll read them out for Max to answer. But Max, I'm kind of curious, like you mentioned, you work with organizations as well as VIPs. Are there big differences in the product between those two profiles, or is it fairly similar?
It's actually really similar. We operate at the inbox level APIs for any account. The only difference that we see really materially between the two is individual accounts will use WebAuthn or Face ID as a challenge mechanism versus something like a Duo or an Okta, right? And then I think secondarily, where we have some room to grow down the road is in terms of our phishing mitigation, right? That works really well in an org where one user can protect the whole herd. For individuals, that will take some time for us to evolve, where we kind of have a network of individual accounts that agree to and consent to, listen to similar emails that have been flagged by other individuals. But yeah.
Got it. I guess one question here from Keegan. If the box password reset email was a phishing email, what is gained by locking it down with material security? Does it not get reopened back into a phishing email after you auth?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we've come across this in terms of attacks like, the Google Docs worm, right? Would be a prime example of this. The neat thing about being involved at the API layer is because you can be super surgical with, any and all emails. If one user reports that, right? Yes, we may lock if it's similar enough to a password reset email that we'd want to assume it's sensitive. But at the same time, after it is unlocked, what will happen is the user will also get warned and speed bumped, right? So there's really no interference between the two protections, and they're totally distinct.
Is there a security team usually at the companies that you're selling to that might review some of this stuff that is flagged as suspicious, or is it all pretty automated?
Yeah, so there is an entire admin UI and data platform that I didn't show today. We have an API, we have events functionality in terms of webhooks, integrations with Slack, PagerDuty. Another really neat thing that's kind of a can of worms in terms of timing today, but we give each one of our customers access to the infrastructure our product runs on. Today, that's a single tenant GCP instance, but that allows you to extend our product in ways that traditional SaaS doesn't offer. And then I think there are applications as well, just from experience across InfoSec, legal, compliance, lots of different teams end up reaching out about our solution.
Awesome. Cool. I think that's about all the time that we have for material, and we're ready to switch it over to Joe from Facet. Thank you so much, Max, for taking the time to join us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Up next is Joe Reisinger from Facet. Joe had a pretty mind-blowing presentation at the last Demo Faire, so we had to invite him back to show us what's new in Facet and give us a peek under the hood again on their photo editing software. So Joe, do you want to take it away and tell us a little bit more about what you're working on at Facet?
Absolutely, yeah. Let me just share the screen here. So thanks a bunch, friends. So my name's Joe. I'm the CEO of Facet. We are a platform for creating breathtaking imagery programmatically. Basically, the thing that has changed is that the rise of digital, and there's an incredible demand for visual storytelling that's not becoming any less, images are not becoming any less salient or important as time goes on. And unfortunately, the tooling for creating photorealistic content, such as images and video, is still kind of stuck in the print era. The main high-end tool is Photoshop, and Photoshop's been around for just about 30 years. I'm going to run through really quick just the types of things that people have created on Facet. It's a pretty wide range, a lot of editorial, fashion, event content, kind of more abstract, artistic content, stuff for kind of marketing or brands campaigns, architectural photography, luxury brands, lifestyle, etc. And we're starting to see, we're starting to get folks to use Facet for video as well. So let me pop over. There's a quick plug if y'all want to see more of what's happening on Facet. You can actually go to facet.space. That's the URL. There's a bunch of community content here, and you can actually see how these images got made. So Facet itself, we are a web-based batch photo editor, and it is going to fight with Zoom for graphics RAM, so things are going to look a little bit weird, but hopefully we'll be okay. When you load it up, there's a couple of things you'll notice. We're based in the cloud, so I have a URL here for this editing session. I can share this with collaborators. if you've ever done any photo editing, the most salient thing that happens in this editor is there's just a little box down here of all the masks, mask content. I can actually go in and literally just mask something out. And now we're going to select the background and like apply like a, like a gradient fill or something. I'm really going to wing it. Hopefully this will look good. I'll apply a bit of a gradient fill here. And you can see this basically applied to the image. I didn't have to do any of the masking of, this person. Similarly, I can go and grab foregrounds. I think in this case, I'm gonna do curves. All the basic kind of Photoshop Lightroom stuff you'd expect is in there, including some cooler like AI type stuff that I'm not gonna have a ton of time to get into, but maybe a little bit. So here's something I'm gonna do. Maybe I'm kind of happy. Maybe I'm kind of happy with this. The real power of Facet actually comes in to the batch editing. So I'm actually gonna zoom out and I can load up the rest of the images from this shoot, and you can see all my changes were automatically applied. Okay, and now for the really cool part of this demo, I'm actually going to try to invite our head of front-end engineering, Kyle, as an editor into this session. So I just gave him access. This is our sharing dialogue. It's kind of functions more or less the same way as Google Docs. There's Kyle there. You can see his cursor. And Kyle's going to go in and, like, as I'm watching, is going to basically start making changes to these images. And this is, I think, one of the technologies that we're really the most excited about is this sort of presence. The notion that I can actually see, that looks really, really interesting. The notion that I can actually see someone else doing their editing. So for things like collaboration, oversight, creative direction, it allows you to really kind of just get in and jam together directly. And we're really excited about that. I think I've hit my time limit. If maybe I'll do one really quick. So it's not just foreground backgrounds. I'll say one really quick thing. We can actually go and grab. I'll go grab this. These deep reddish clothings, and we could actually kind of add adjustments to these that affect the colors and things like that. So pretty much everything you want, is built in. The content awareness is the kind of the linchpin for it. We actually track items of clothing and other things across images. So if you're doing if you're doing e-commerce work, if you have various SKUs for your products, you'll be able to kind of catalog and edit things very consistently across all of your images. Okay, that's getting a little bit crazy. Okay, cool. I will stop here if folks have questions. Actually, before I do that, quick plug. I'm just going to leave this slide up here while we talk. We are hiring across a bunch of different roles: artist in residence, engineering artist in residence, hiring for a head of community, hiring a new designer, and we're hiring all across engineering, front end, back end, computer vision, AI, pretty much anything you want. And for folks in SPC, the link down here at the bottom, that will get you free access to the products. You can try it out. Cool.
Thank you, Joe. As always, an absolutely amazing jaw-dropping demo. I can't imagine anything cooler than being an artist in residence or engineer in residence at Facet. That sounds amazing. So hopefully some people in the audience check that out. I'm kind of curious, what are one or two of the coolest or maybe craziest use cases that you've seen for Facet so far?
Yeah, that's a really great question. The one that shocked us, honestly, very early on, the one that shocked us was people using Facet for video. We built it as a batch photo editor. We certainly have ambitions in the video space, but it wasn't where we started with the product. And folks just would, you effectively upload a bunch of frames of a video, you transform them using our tools. We've got a lot of kind of interesting creative stuff built in, like style transfer, healing brush, things like that are really useful for stop motion work. So that was pretty incredible. Other use cases that we other use cases we're excited about. I think generally working with artists who are not quite name brands, but we have a couple of folks who are using the product now who have in the hundreds of thousands of Instagram followers, and that's honestly pretty just pretty exciting to see that that we're able to reach into that kind of level of the professional user use case.
Awesome. What does the transition to kind of video look like for you guys? Have you had to make any changes to the product to facilitate that, or does the kind of just batch editing work if you separate it out into frames pretty well? Curious what that process has looked like.
Yeah, there's two major constraints. Well, there's one major constraint, which is your processing power. Processing power and storage for video just goes up obviously exponentially. And so for us, that means investing more in local storage, not necessarily uploading hundreds of gigabytes of your content to the cloud, at least while you're doing editing. And so we have, and browsers have fairly modern tooling for dealing with that. The other piece is kind of on the AI side, scaling that up to video. The same algorithms work kind of in both cases. In some sense, video is actually easier in the conceptual sense because you have frames that are often very, very, very similar to each other. And so you can leverage those constraints to understand things like depth or stationary versus non-stationary objects. Objectness becomes easier to detect. A lot of the AI problems actually get easier at that stage, but the compute power ramps up pretty exponentially.
Super interesting. Thank you so much, Joe, for joining us and giving the demo of Facet.
Yeah, absolutely. Really great chatting with you.
Awesome. And yeah, be sure to visit Facet's website or facet.space to see their community content and check out some of those roles. Next up, we have, well, I suppose we only have 2 demos left for you today. We're sadly nearing the end, but next we have Guy from Ask Wonder. Several SPC members, including myself, have used Ask Wonder to help with their research projects and market research for their startups. So we're definitely big fans of the tool and are really excited to see Guy's live demo of what they're doing here.
Amazing. Thanks, Finn. Can you guys hear me all right? Cool. Yep. All right. Thanks, everyone at SPC for having us today. These demos have been amazing. I'm Guy, the CEO of Wonder, and we're in the business of giving people their time back. So I'm going to try to keep this as short and sweet as possible. And no, we're not the sliced bread company. So what is Wonder? We're an on-demand research firm. You can ask us any question and get a detailed answer in 24 hours or less. Quick show of hands. Who has ever been in a position where they've searched for long hours for something that helps them with their job on Google? And they fast forward and it's like 6 hours later and they're still looking for that data point, that market size, link to somebody's LinkedIn that they're looking for. Has anyone else experienced that? Okay, amazing. So rewind 6 years ago, we looked around the world and 2 things were happening at the same time. The first was there was this epidemic of professional Googling happening that we saw across every friend in every organization, whether they were recruiters or content marketers or consultants at big banks. Everyone was spending an inordinate amount of time searching for things on the public domain to help them do their job better, yet none of them had a master's in library science or knew how to do specific search queries that helped them find the thing that was on the 100th page of Google. At the same time, we saw this crazy graph which showed underemployment rates superimposed on education levels in the United States. And what we found is that the gig economy gave most really highly intelligent folks here in the US 2 options: drive a car for Uber or deliver groceries. And we thought there was an opportunity to create a new gig job for the really brilliant people looking to learn while they earn. So we grew up in libraries. Does anyone remember reference librarians or the Dewey Decimal System? Yeah? Okay, so there's a reason none of us would ever be left in a library alone to find the book that we're looking for, because we'd all die in there. That's why there's a librarian who knows the stacks and the aisles and where everything exists. And so we asked ourselves a really simple question. If the internet is the new version of the library, how can we bring the librarian back? So let me show you what it is and how the magic works. Okay, just gonna share my screen real quick. Can everyone see my screen? Yeah?
Yep.
Cool. So you just go to askwonder.com, you create a profile, and basically this is like having an army of PhD interns at your fingertips to answer every one of your wonders. So I'm just going to quickly queue up a new project, something that I'm interested in or working on. So let's pretend I'm an entrepreneur who's working in the extended reality space. I'd like to know the market size for the extended reality space, break it out by AR, VR, and anything else that fits under the umbrella. Please also include growth rates or anything else about major players and how they're evolving. So you go through a series of questions which we've developed over the last 5 years of realizing how bad we all are at asking questions to help people clarify exactly what they're looking for. I can add an engagement, so I can say this is attached to our Series A pitch deck or whatever it might be. Then I'm going to say we're going to use these data points for our Series A pitch deck. Then you'll keep getting asked questions. I'm going to skip most of these. These are clarifiers that help you really clarify exactly what you're looking for. And then you get to choose who you want to work with. Normally, we suggest you work with a generalist. These are people who don't have specific background in any particular field. But if you feel like you want to go a little bit deeper, you can go to any of our industry specialists and select them. So I could say I want to work with someone in software and tech. And if they're not available, what do I want? I want to cancel the project or anything like that. Then I go hit next. Here's your confirmation screen. If you're on the self-service side of the business, not on the enterprise side of the business, you'd see pricing here and scope, and then you hit submit project and you're totally done. What happens on the back end, it gets routed to one of our 10,000 analysts in 91 different countries based on what you selected. And in under 24 hours, you get a detailed write-up. And so this is the output. This is what a piece of research can look like. We are not a primary research network. We don't provide opinions. Everything is objective and hyperlinked in the report, so you can see where we actually got all the detail. And you can see here, this is just one of our basic reports that goes into the deep dive of the different virtual reality spaces, mixed hybrid reality, who are the major players, what's the market size, etc. We get questions from every corner of the earth about everything you could imagine. Example, how influential are athletes on social media followings for big sports organizations? After some of the major trades that some of you might have been following, a bunch of our clients were curious about this. And so we did a deep dive into what social media accounts look like before and after some major players moved from one to the other. We do research pretty much on anything like I described. A lot of it's for consulting firms, for big ad agencies, for Fortune, and they all use us in different ways. Here's an example where somebody wanted to know how many people who own electric vehicles also own their own charging station, and how many people use the public charging stations. And so you can see we can get quite specific and give people a breakdown of what that looks like. And if you scroll to the bottom of any of these reports, you'll see everything, all of our sources are hyperlinked down here. I was building our parental leave policy a while ago, so I wanted to know what the top parental leave policies were in the US and who was forward thinking in the space and what did it look like. And so Wonder built me a spreadsheet with all of the different parental leave policies so I could see who was ahead of the game on this. We had a content marketing team who was digging into the Department of Education in California's new math proposal to see what that was like and who was funding it and what was going to happen and had this happen in any other state besides California. So we dug into that. And then my brother, who's launching a direct-to-consumer candy business, needed to know everything about all the competitors in the space. So we built him a big SWOT analysis of every single candy competitor who's been successful. What marketing strategy did they use? How many SKUs did they have? What was the minimum order value? Because he was trying to understand their customer acquisition costs, etc. And so I'm going to stop sharing there. That's it. That's Wonder. We help you get smart fast on anything. And if I have one action item, it's just stay curious.
Thank you so much, Guy. That was fantastic. Really interesting to see just the diversity of use cases and types of questions that are being asked and that you guys can service. If anyone has questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I think we have time for maybe one or two, but I guess maybe one initial one for me is you guys seem to have so much variety in terms of your questions. How can you possibly service all of these questions? Who's doing the research? And are you guys just kind of like leveraging any proprietary data sources, or just kind of going out and just looking at all the public databases?
Yeah, great question. So maybe I'll unpack it into the two questions. The second one being, do we use prop databases or anything? We're funded by Bloomberg as well as SPC and a few others. We've had the great fortune of looking under the hood of what exists in the proprietary data space, and what we found, at least for what we were looking for, is most of it is publicly available. They just repackage it and sell it at much higher rates. And so if you're good enough at looking at the public domain, you could find 90% of what you're looking for. And so we just wanted to focus on that piece. We even did a partnership with a big prop database provider, and we found that most of our clients were just doing secondary desk research. And so we stuck to what we were good at. And then on the other side, it's a great question. We actually struggled a lot with this in the early days. Do we focus on the unbounded question set? You can ask us anything, or do we just build jobs to be done? And you can only ask us a market size or a competitive landscape or a list or etc. And what we found is that questions are just so unique in nature that we had to keep it unbounded. And really that the job from the quality standpoint that we had to do was build a really great assembly line to make sure that each QA checkpoint was doing the right job to make sure we understood what the client was actually going to do with the information we were delivering.
Got it. Good question from Keegan to follow on that, which is, what happens if a researcher gets stumped? Does it happen?
Yeah, great question. So there's a few categories of when a researcher gets stumped. The first is you ask us to do something we don't do, which is, hey, call my airline and get me a refund, which happens pretty frequently. The second version is you want a number that doesn't exist. So give me the market size of the electric toothbrush space in South Dakota, right? And that number just doesn't exist anywhere. In that category, what we do is we usually have some of our best analysts help triangulate it. And so then we'll craft a custom piece of research and data point for that. And then, yeah, I'd say the last one is mostly around digging into anything that is proprietary in nature, and we'll push them to one of our partner providers that we don't have access to.
Great, great. Well, if anyone asks you for a visa, you can now go to Mohak's company Atlas, send them that way. I think that is all the time we have for questions for Wonder. Thank you so much, Guy. I really appreciate you joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
And now we'll move it over to Apro Health. Nick Shelly from SPC, an SPC alum, is going to make this presentation. And Nick's presentation will actually be